Hello students, let us continue to study the chapter Diversity in Living Organisms. Today we will learn about the kingdom plant. So we had seen in the previous class that plantae, the group of plants are grouped together which are autotrophic, multicellular and eukaryotic. So today we learn about the subgroups in it. So the first level of classification among plants depends on whether the plant body has well differentiated distinct parts. So if they have roots, stems, etc. based on that. Then the next level of classification is based on whether the differentiated plant body has special tissues for the transport of water and other substances. So we know that there are special tissues in the plants for the transport of water, which we call as xylem, and there is also phloem for the transport of food. Then further classification looks upon the ability to bear seeds and whether the seeds are enclosed with it. So we will learn this using a flow chart so that you can remember better. So this kingdom plantae is divided on the basis of having differentiated body parts and those plants which do not have stem or root, which we call as thallophyte. Next, the well-differentiated body parts are again further classified on the basis of the vascular tissues. We know the vascular tissues are xylem and phloem. So we know that xylem is for the transport of water. Transport of water takes place in the upward direction, and phloem is the vessel which is used for the transport of food. And here there is transportation taking place in both the directions. Then, in case they do not have xylem or phloem, they are called as bryophyta. And those which have the vascular tissues, that is xylem and phloem, are again subdivided into two broad categories, that is those which produce seeds and those which do not produce seeds. So in case they do not produce seeds, we call them as pteridophytes, and in case they produce seeds, we call them as sphanerograms. Sphanerograms are again divided into two parts. One, if they have naked seeds, we call them as gymnosperms, and in case they bear seeds inside fruits, they are called as angiosperms. Now, question is, what are the criteria for deciding the division in plants different from the criteria for deciding the subgroup among animals? The criteria for the plants are: first, the presence of distinct organs, that is stems, roots, etc. Second, distinct vascular tissues, that is xylem and phloem. Third, seed producing capacity, whether it can produce or not, that is phanerograms. Okay, we learn more about this, and whether the seeds are enclosed within fruit, that is gymnosperms and angiosperms. We'll go to the first subgroup, that is Thallophyta. Here we see that these plants do not have a well differentiated body design in this group. So the plants in this group are commonly called as algae. So they are predominantly aquatic. These are Spirogyra, Ulthrix, Cladophora, Ulva, and Chara. So here are the examples of it. Here we can clearly see we cannot differentiate between the stems and all because it does not have a well differentiated body type. So because of that, and they are aquatic in nature, that is they are usually found in water. These are different types of algae. We go to the second subgroup. Before that, we'll see the question: which division among plants has the simplest organisms? Definitely we will have the algal organisms, which will have the simple division among the plants because they do not have a distinct body type. Then we come to Bryophyta. So these are called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom. So the plant body is commonly differentiated to form stem and leaf-like structures. So here it has a well-differentiated body type which is not present in the Thellophyta. However, there is no specialized tissue for the conduction of water and other substances from one part of the plant body to another. So there is no xylem and phloem. There is no vascular tissues for the conduction of water and other substances. Now, there are the examples they've given of moss. Okay, the example is Funaria and Machentia. So these are the some colored pictures also of Machentia, and this is Rica, how it appears this way. So this was the second subgroup, that is Bryophyta. First one was Thellophyta. Go to the third one, that is Pteridophyta. In this group, the plant body is differentiated into roots, stems, and leaves, and has specialized tissue for conduction of water and other substances from one part of the plant body to another. So here we have the plants which have roots, stems, leaves, etc. And there are also the vascular tissues which are present. And they have given example of mycelia, ferns, and osteals. So here are the examples. Here you can see ferns. Okay, here this colored picture, and this is mycelia, the colored picture. Now, the reproductive organs of the plants in all these three groups are very inconspicuous and therefore called cryptograms, or those with hidden reproductive organs. So there will be some plants who have hidden reproductive system and therefore they are called as cryptograms. On the other hand, we have plants with well differentiated reproductive parts that ultimately make seeds, which we call as phanerogams. First, we have the cryptogram with hidden reproductive system. Second, we have the phanerograms with well differentiated reproductive parts. Now, seeds are the result of sexual reproduction process. They consist of the embryo along with stored food, which assist for the initial growth of the embryo during germination. This group is further classified based on whether the seeds are naked or enclosed in fruit, giving us two groups, that is gymnosperms and angiosperms. So in case we have the seeds which are naked, we call them as gymnosperms. If they are enclosed in fruits, we call them as angiosperms. We'll learn more about gymnosperms and angiosperms. Now, how are the pteridophytes different from the phanerograms? Now we know that the pteridophytes, they do not produce seeds, but the phanerograms, they will produce seeds. Then the pteridophytes, they have hidden reproductive organs. Okay, therefore they are called as cryptograms. Then we have the phanerograms, where they have well differentiated reproductive organs. Now we'll come to the gymnosperm. Now this word gymnosperm, the term is derived from two Greek words, gymno, which means naked, and sperma, which means seed. So the plant of this group bear naked seeds and are usually perennial, evergreen, and woody. So the examples are pine and deodar. So if you all have seen over here, you know that these plants do not produce any fruits as such. Okay, they only bear naked seeds. Okay, you can see this there. Always you can see this on the beaches and all. They are usually evergreen. Now we go to the second group, which is angiosperm. Now this word is made of two Greek words, angio, which means covered, and sperma, which means seed. So these are called flowering plants. The seeds develop inside an ovary, which is modified to become a fruit. So now the seeds in this case will give rise to fruits. In the previous case, we were not getting fruits. Now, plant embryos in seeds have structures called cotyledons. Cotyledons are called seed leaves because in many instances they emerge and become green when they germinate. Now, the angiosperms are divided into two groups on the basis of the cotyledons present in them. Now, we know cotyledons are called the seed leaves, okay, because when they germinate, they usually are green in color. So, on basis of the cotyledons, they are divided into two groups. Further, the angiosperms further is divided into two groups. The plants having a single cotyledon, which is called the monocotyledons or monocots, and plants with seeds having two cotyledons, which are called as dicots. So we have the examples, which is rice and corn for monocots, and dicots is green peas and groundnut. Now, in case you see this monocot, you can see that there is only one seed, okay, as in the example of the corn or the sunflower seeds. Okay, there is only one seed. But in case of a dicot like the peanut, here we see that there are two cotyledons. Okay, it means that the seed has two or die parts, two parts to the seed. In case of a monocotyledon, I have only one part to the seed. So they've given an example of a peanut or a pinto bean. So this is another further classification of the monocot versus the dicot, which has one cotyledon, two cotyledons. Then about the root system, which is fibrous and taproot. Then about the flowers, they have no petals in terms of multiples of three, but the dicots have multiples of 4 or 5 petals. Then the leaves are very narrow, but in case of dicots, they are oval or net-like structure, and the vascular bundles are scattered, but here it is ringed, and the pollen grains have a 4 of furrow, and here they have 3 fours of furrow. So this is just to give a more in-depth knowledge of the difference between monocots and dicots. Now we come to a question: how are gymnosperms different from angiosperms? So we know the gymnosperms are the flowering plants and fruits, and the angiosperms, these plants do not produce. This is the reverse. So the seeds are enclosed inside the fruits. These are the angiosperms, and the gymnosperms, the seeds are naked as they do not bear the fruits. Now we will just summarize the entire class. So the plants are divided on the basis of well differentiated and differentiated plant bodies. So in case they do not have a differentiated plant body, we call it as Thallophyta. In case they have a differentiated plant body, we again divide it into two parts, that is based on the presence or absence of the vascular tissues. So those without the vascular tissues are called the bryophyta, and those with the vascular tissues are again subdivided on the basis of the capacity to produce seeds or which cannot produce seeds. So in case they do not produce seeds, we call them as pteridophyta, and in case they are able to produce seeds, we call them as phanerogams. On the basis of producing seeds also, they are classified into two more types, that is if they can bear naked seeds, that is they are called as gymnosperms, and in case they are able to bear seeds inside fruits, they are called as angiosperms. The angiosperms are further divided into two parts, that which have seeds with two cotyledons, that is the dicots, and the monocots are having only one cotyledon. Thank you, students.